Hi, welcome to Ed of Art Lockdown Edition. I'm sitting down the back of my property in the Blue Mountains amongst the beautiful bush and the birds, and I'm going to show you how to draw a picture of some eucalyptus flowers and leaves. So I hope you've got a nice sunny spot to sit in and something to sip, and that you have fun doing this with me.
We're going to start with a pencil and we're going to draw a nice long sweeping line. That's going to form our stem at the top and the central vein of our leaf, slightly curved. Decide how long you want your leaf to be, come out from the top and just gradually curve, narrowing down towards the very tip of that leaf. I'm going to pop my second leaf in behind that first one, another long sweeping central vein. You want to keep these lines nice and organic. Any little mistakes you make at this point are absolutely fine. So I'm just going to pop in another one in behind those two. Good things come in threes. Remember, you want to keep your lines nice and light at this point. They're a guide only, so don't press too hard with your pencil. So now that I've got my leaves drawn, I'm going to sketch in where my gum nuts and my flowers are going to go in this blank section up the top here. So I'm going to draw a line down from that main stem on a little bit of an angle and then split it into two because I want two gum nuts. Now I have to decide what's going to be in front here. So I'm going to draw this gum nut over the top of my leaf, and our gum nuts are sort of little bell shapes. They've got little curved sides and curved bottoms. Now I'm putting two in here because I think that fills the space nicely, but you can put more if you like. Our fronds are going to come down from those gum nut shapes. We're not going to draw them just yet. So for this drawing, you're going to need some coloured pencils, some greens in a few different shades from light to dark, a few different browns, some pinks, again from light to dark, and a yellow. Good idea to have a sharpener as well and an eraser. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to choose my lightest green tone, and I'm just going to very gently and very lightly colour in my first leaf. Now it's important that you don't press too hard here and that you follow the contour and follow the shape of your leaf. I like to colour things in separate sections and leave a very light section right in the middle there. So I'm just going to very gently and very lightly colour in that whole leaf shape. Once you've got a nice light base, stay with the same colour and just spend a little bit more time darkening certain sections of your leaf. Now there's no such thing as a mistake here, you really can't go wrong. Just make sure you don't colour the whole leaf the same colour. Choose some areas to make darker and some areas to leave light. So now we're going to come in with our second darkest tone and we're going to work over the top of those sections again and create a little bit more tonal variation. You don't have to press too hard here. You're just going to darken those areas a little bit more with your slightly darker tone of green. Now moving on to our darkest tone of green, this is going to create some nice shadows for us. Now this leaf is sitting behind the one in front of it, so I'm going to darken that edge in order to create a little bit of a shadow and give it some three-dimensionality. Don't go too heavy-handed with your darkest tone, you just want some areas to stand out a little bit more than others. Next we're going to work with some brown. We want our gum leaves to look quite natural and realistic, and they will often have little sections right along the edges and in the middle that are slightly brown or marked. So you're just going to choose a few little sections both on the edges of your leaf and in the middle section where you're going to add a slight brown shadow. You might also want to define the central vein of your leaf at this point and the tip as well. Next you're going to need a nice sharp pencil in red, which is going to help you define the central vein of your leaf and the very tip of that leaf as well. Now it might feel a little bit weird to be working with a red pencil, but if you look very carefully at a lot of gum leaves, they actually do have a fairly strong red tinge. So you're going to work over the top of those little brown sections that you did before, the stem of the leaf, and just that top curve as well to really make those sections stand out. And we're just going to blend that red in a little bit as well, just to define some of those areas. So now you're just going to come back in with all of the colours that you've already used and just continue building up the colour. Working over the top of what you've already done, now is the time to start really developing your different tonal variations, pressing a little bit harder in some sections, and blending all of your colours together. It's also the time to start really adding some darker shadows. A lot of people are afraid to go dark with their pencil, but that is what makes our work really stand out. So don't be afraid to press nice and hard in some areas that are already dark and really bring your work up to the next level. Remember, the key to successful work is variation. So we don't want everything to be the same tone. We want some areas to stand out more than others. So you can see that I'm coming back in with my brown as well, defining the edge of my leaf and really making certain sections stand out nice and dark. Another trick that you can use is your eraser. You can actually rub over the top of some sections of your leaf and give yourself some highlights as well. So that's our first leaf done. Now it's time to do exactly the same process on our next two leaves. Remember, start nice and light with your lightest tones and gradually build up the colour. Don't make everything the same tone. Keep some areas light and make some areas really nice and dark, so you've created some variation and made your work really interesting to look at. Now before I go on with my last leaf, I'm going to grab my lightest tone of pink because I need to sketch in where the fronds of my flower are going to go, because the flower is sitting on top of the leaf. So I'm just going to very lightly sketch in and colour the section over the top of the leaf where the fronds of my flower are going to go, so that I don't accidentally colour over the top of that section in green. You can see that it's really light, it's just a guideline at this stage. Now you can see that as I'm blocking in my colour here, I have gone around that pink section that I sketched in before, because I want my fronds to sit in front of my leaf. Now in order to make your work look three-dimensional, shadows are really important. You can see that my centre leaf is sitting over the top of my other leaves, so I'm going to darken that edge where those two leaves meet, and that's going to make my work look three-dimensional. You want this shadow to be as dark as you can get it. And I'm going to go ahead and darken the one on the other side as well to really make it stand out. Once you've done your leaves, you want to work with your reddish brown and just thicken those stems a little bit. Remember, these are supposed to be natural objects, so it's okay if your lines aren't perfectly straight or if they're a little bit bumpy. Now that our leaves are done, we're going to start working on our gum nuts. So grab your lightest brown and start colouring in. Remember, a curved shape requires your pencil to move in a curved direction, and you want to work a little bit darker around the edges and leave a highlight in the centre. Once you've got a nice light tone over the whole thing, spend a little bit more time around that bottom curve and in the corners in order to create a sense of three-dimensionality. Now this drawing is all about layering our colours, so come back in with your slightly darker brown, spend more time along those edges, following the curve of your shape, and create that sense of three-dimensionality. You want to blend your tones as well, so don't press too hard on your pencil. We want to leave that highlight in the centre, but we want to blend in towards it. Keeping your pencil nice and sharp will help you to create some really dramatic shadows. So with your darkest tone of brown, really define the edge of that gum nut and start picking out the stem as well. Now grab your yellow, go over the top of your highlight and blend in all of your browns together to make it really nice and bright. And same again on the other one. Now to really define our shadows, we're going to use a black pencil just to really make those darkest areas stand out and make our work look as 3D as possible. Once you've got your gum nuts coloured in, come back in with that reddish brown and define all of your stems. Remember, these are supposed to be natural objects, so your lines should not be too perfect. They can be a little bit bumpy and a little bit uneven. You also want to come in with a nice dark brown and create a little bit of tone through the stems as well. That's it, now it's time for our flowers. So we're going to start with a nice light pink for this step, and the fronds of our flower extend just past the curve on either side. Now the direction your pencil moves is really important during this step. So you can see that my pencil is moving in a curved direction. You want to create little flicks out from the bottom of that gum nut shape. Imagine you're drawing a ballerina's tutu and they get shorter as you approach the edge of that shape. You're working really lightly to start with. It's a bit hard to see in this particular shot, but as I start to add darker tones, you'll see what I mean. Staying with the same colour, you're going to start darkening some of these fronds. You can see they're little flicks and that they're nice and short at the corner of this gum nut, but they get longer towards the centre. That's going to create the three-dimensionality of our shape. So we're pressing a little bit harder, and as you can see, it's a really curved line that I'm creating, a little flick where I lift my pencil at the end of each line. I don't go back and forth. And you can see as I start adding darker and darker tones that I've created the shape of that eucalyptus flower. Now I'm going to come in with a darker pink, and it's the same process, nice and short at the corners, getting longer towards the center, curved lines, a little flick, lift your pencil at the end of each line, and as you add more tone, you can see the detail of that eucalyptus flower starting to emerge. Now grab your red pencil and you're going to add some really nice dark and dramatic flicks with this colour. Nice and short, these ones. That's going to make your flower look really three-dimensional. Now we're just going to go back to that light pink and we're just going to fill in the bottom here a little bit because the definition has gotten a little bit lost. So I'm just going to work backwards, nice and lightly, just to fill in the fullness of that flower shape. And the same thing with my slightly darker pink. just to give some definition for the ends of those fronds. Give it a few tiny little upward flicks right at the end, just to make it look like the fronds are going behind your gum nut. Grab your yellow pencil and give it some pollen, just some little yellow dots, right on the ends of those fronds. Looks great, time for the next one. Now because my second flower is behind my first, I'm obviously going to stop when I get to what I've done previously because I want this first one to be overlapping the second. That's it, now it's just time for finishing touches. So go back in with all of the colours that you've used previously, blend your colours together, darken your shadows, and just refine your work. Using an eraser to create highlights will make your work even more interesting. And that's it, you're done. Sit back and admire your work.
So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like and subscribe and look out for new content from Ed of Art coming soon.